This is episode 552 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing.
And I'm Wally Drangmeister.
I'm president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. Wally, always important things going on, but first and foremost, happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween to you.
Yeah, you got a big contingent of trick-or-treaters in your neighborhood, or
Yeah, it's kind of grown over the years. It's not one of the places that's huge, but we get a fair amount. So we have some candy ready to go and hope to see some trick-or-treaters tonight.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll be out and about. It'll be a little chilly on the chilly side for Halloween this year, and that's a-okay. Just have to make those mummy outfits a little more insulated. And anyway, well, let's get right to it. We have several items to talk about, and one of the things we always, I think, talk about energy in some context. This is not going to be an exception in that regard as an episode, but the accusations fly, especially from kind of the so-called green energy side of things about, coal and oil and all of these forms of energy have, receive these massive subsidies, and that it's okay, therefore, to also hand massive subsidies to the wind and solar industries. And ran across a chart a few days ago from the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Now, I'm not sure if it's their chart or a chart they just also found, but it is available at airsoфenchantment.com using Energy Information Administration data. And they looked at energy subsidies per billion BTUs in FY 2022. And subsidies to renewable energy are 41 times greater than to oil and natural gas on a per unit of energy basis, is the upshot. Solar, by far and away, the most heavily subsidized. Geothermal, next in line. And I guess this is, so the subsidy per billion BTUs, 4,086.69 for solar, 1,452 for geothermal, 938.80 for wind, biomass, which is primarily, I'd imagine, ethanol, $773, zero for hydro, the greenest, well, in many ways, and also the least subsidized of all energy sources, hydroelectric. There's other issues that enviros don't like about hydro, but it's certainly zero CO2. Nuclear, $13.64. Oil, $30.23. Natural gas, same as oil. And coal, $49.03. So some very minor subsidies on a per unit of energy basis. But boy, I was not aware that solar was quite so out of line there. And I didn't know that geothermal was so heavily subsidized. It's unfortunate because there's a bill in the last session here in New Mexico about geothermal and kind of incentivizing them, but I didn't realize just how heavily subsidized geothermal would be. I mean, you would think possibly that running regular cold water into a hot part of the planet and then pulling it back out and using it to run a turbine might be a reasonable approach to energy production, but seems like geothermal, despite its steadiness, unlike solar and wind, remains a heavily subsidized form of energy generation.
Yeah, and Paul, geothermal, this is a technical energy term. It's a big nothing burger. So out of 100 quadrillion BTUs of source energy in the United States in 2022, 0.21 came from geothermal. So 0.2%, and it just so happens that 100.3 quads, it makes the math really easy. So, yeah, don't hold your breath anytime on that one. And just, it's not like geothermal exploration and projects haven't been occurring off and on, really for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And still, yeah, it's one of those things. A lot of things that say, well, this ought to be easy to do. That has not proven the case thus far with geothermal. But that doesn't mean we're not going to keep trying. So,
We do have geothermal, however, in New Mexico, and I was talking to somebody off the record from PNM, but I believe it's way down towards the Boot Heel in
hmm
southwestern New Mexico, and um, they said it was very expensive and very bulky. It was something that did not work or function particularly well, which again, I'm geothermal and how it actually works and the geology and what you need. Obviously, geothermal can't be applied everywhere. You need some kind of magma or some kind of heat from the ground that's enough to really get the turbines going. And obviously, we have a lot of hot springs areas,
right.
not the least of which is the town formerly known as Hot Springs, aka Truth or Consequences. But you just don't have, for whatever reason, the resources available there. Uh, but it's just shocking how subsidy intensive solar is as well.
Yeah. And then, the other thing is that there is this kind of thought or belief or narrative, particularly in the media, that we're almost there on solar. And it's like, well, we're almost there, other than in total energy sourcing in 2022, 1.87 quadrillion BTUs, so less than 2% of total energy inputs in the United States comes from solar. I used to do this years ago. I'd always ask people what they think, what percentage of energy comes from solar. And back then, people are guessing, oh, 20, 30, 40, 50%. No, it's less than 2%. And so that includes all uses of energy, which is an appropriate thing to do. Electricity, what goes into making electricity, what's used for heat, what's used for transportation, industry, all the things that happen. But yeah, that we're not necessarily in the same place that people think we are when it comes to what energy is doing here in the United States right now.
Well, wind has certainly been around for a very, very long time. As anyone who drives east to west, and I'm not talking obviously the wind. I'm talking about wind as a form of
Well,
energy.
or the rolling along with the tumbling tumbleweeds. Windmills as water pumps in New Mexico goes back, over 100, 150, 200 years it's happened. But yes, and yeah, it's been here for a while, and wind is actually a greater energy provider. It's almost 4% here in the U.S. as opposed to 2 for solar. So
Yeah. So there's plenty of problems, and these are mature technologies. These have inherent problems, but that is a uh, it's not like necessarily. I mean, yeah, battery technology been around for a long time. I'm sure they can make improvements to it, but all of these forms of energy have been around for a very long time. And what may have been efficient for bringing water up from a well using a wind powered windmill is not necessarily good enough to keep the lights on and generate electricity on a large scale on a steady basis. So it's just you get these people who think, oh, it's green, it's got to be good, and there's a reason we have traditionally had an energy marketplace that is heavily tilted towards fossil fuels, coal traditionally, natural gas, oil, uh, nuclear to an extent, and we'd like to see more of that. Hydropower certainly being another option in certain areas. But yeah, anyway, just thought that was a relevant chart. Speaking of energy and information that is, uh, you know, frustrating and people jumping on the bandwagon for political reasons before it is ready for prime time, or in the case of the chairman of Toyota, uh, expressing skepticism, being the grandson of the founder of Toyota, with the name Toyoda. Again, it's a translation from Japanese. So uh, this is the former CEO who was moved out partially because of his kind of skeptical approach to uh, electric vehicles. So he went from CEO to chairman, which is a much more ceremonial uh, position. But he said people are seeing the reality finally of electric vehicles. This is the chair of the company, and he said in the Wall Street Journal that this is just one of many ways that we can climb the mountain of achieving carbon neutrality, but the reticence his company has expressed towards fully embracing EVs was correct and has been correct, and will keep them in good stead for the foreseeable future, while other companies, especially the big three, although it's really GM, Ford, and a conglomerate called Stellantis, those companies have, I think, because of American political desires on the part of the Biden administration, some governors have really been going headlong towards EVs. So I suspect that uh, the reality is that Toyota and Honda and some of these non maybe completely bought in EV Japanese companies will continue to gain market share, while some of them that really bought into the hype of EVs as they're already plateauing, according to wide variety of numbers, the uptake of EVs is not working well.
No, no question about it. And there's lots of reasons for that. And along those same lines, a Reuters report from the 19th of October, Ford and General Motors are slowing down their production and delaying projects, taking capacity offline because they are seeing a slowdown in demand for electric vehicles and are very worried about those coming on in the future. And then Tesla is Tesla is slowing down a project in Mexico City, and also they reduced their prices because one of the things that Elon Musk talked about is that to finance a car, and as we go from the very affluent being the ones that are able to afford and who desired electric vehicles, a lot of them already have them. As we're going more into that middle market, as interest rates have gone up, it's made them more expensive. But what Tesla's price cuts did is just make the price stay the same. So it's not like they're going to be any necessarily cheaper, but because of financing and demand, even Tesla, which in the U.S. market, it has been Tesla and the electric vehicle market have been one and the same to this point. So a lot happening there, and it will be interesting to see where things go. And with regard to Toyota and alternative energy vehicles have meant largely just electric vehicles, but there's still fuel cells that are being worked on. There's still various forms of either hydrogen combustion or hydrogen fuel cells. There's ammonia. There's a lot of technologies that are being worked on, and it's not necessarily clear to many following the auto industry. And I've been, taking quite a good look at this over the last several months, that electric vehicles might not have the place that is currently slated for them in the marketplace going forward. So we'll have to march. We'll have to watch that very closely because, as we know here in New Mexico and in California, they're planning for a day when everyone has an electric vehicle, and not sure it's going to be as smooth of transition, if at all. So.
Yeah, and just a reminder, folks, keep your cars in m.com. We need desperately to get as many messages into the Environmental Improvement Board and make it crystal clear that the vast majority of New Mexicans do not support the governor's radical, unelected body embracing uh, this kind of policy of mandating electric vehicles throughout New Mexico. So Uh, Definitely something to not only do yourself, but send around to your friends and neighbors. We have the majority of the population on our side, according to all relevant data, both in terms of the polls as well as the uptake of these vehicles. Certainly, there's some group of people, predominantly, as you said, affluent, maybe third car kind of families, for whom EVs are downright logical, especially when you subsidize them. But for the majority of New Mexicans, they are not a great option. So let's see. Saw this press release from the Economic Development Department. Wally, I don't know if you've checked this thing out, but
I read it and I was just yes, I'm go for it. Yes, this is an interesting one.
so the EDD, New Mexico's Economic Development Department, has just hired a quote just transition advisor to spearhead the state's initiatives in support of a thriving low carbon economy. Of course, just starting out, Economic Development Department, these are the people that hand out subsidy checks. They try to bring businesses to New Mexico. We generally don't see an eye with the Economic Development Department folks because we know that you don't need a department to develop your economy if you have good economic policies. In fact, once you embrace low taxes, reasonable regulations, you have an educated workforce that's ready to engage in productive work. Uh, you don't need an economic development department. The businesses just flock to you. Now, unfortunately, other states, including Texas, do have them. It's kind of just a feature of state government at this point. But I can assure you that Texas probably does not have somebody in the just transition uh, area that they're advising and that they are operating within the, I'm not kidding you, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office. That is the office within the Economic Development Department, the JEDI office. Uh, that This person will help ensure marginalized communities are consulted and prioritized throughout the transition to renewable energy resources. The whole thing just makes me want to uh, vomit. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah, well, and uh, it's one of those things. Is it just to give the most affluent Americans huge subsidies for electric vehicles and to punish poor and middle class people by trying to hoodwink them into the same without even more subsidies? Who knows? But yeah, this is one of those. There's only three problems with that position. There's only three words that are problematic. Just, which that's one of those beauty fairness sort of things. Maybe in the Supreme Court version of defining for pornography, you'll know it if you see it. But what does the transmission transition mean, and what does the advisor do? And this is one of those jobs. Nice work if you can get it, because I'm sure you'll just declare victory and go about your business when you're ready to retire. But yeah, I am not sure what this is, what this position would even, what would it even do?
Well, I mean, going a step further, they talk about this just transition and the transition. Well, they did shut down a coal-fired power plant up in the Four Corners,
Right.
and they theoretically are trying to find employment for those people. But honestly, there's not a whole lot of opportunities there that really replace a a six-figure job for a high school graduate or even a high school dropout in a coal factory or a coal mine or a electricity generating station. uh, you're killing off jobs, and either those people are going on welfare or they're moving or some combination of the two. uh, this kind of government make work uh, so-called economic development mentality when you're actually killing jobs, and then you're doing something to try to look like you're getting some opportunities for people in that region. It's just ridiculous. Now, the oil and gas industry, if you were to somehow kill that off in New Mexico, those people, chances are, would just leave southeastern New Mexico. There's plenty of opportunities throughout the oil and gas industry in other states. Uh, it just strikes me as, uh, in addition to cashing a check for no great reason, uh, it is the exact policy of New Mexico, at least this governor, that they are driving these policies that are killing regular jobs, and there's just no way. Even if this person was amazing, there's just no way for them to help in a transition. There's no viable alternatives for a lot of these jobs.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, and uh, just like with the closure of the San Juan generating station, they're like, well, we're gonna give the community some money, which gets fought over and doesn't necessarily help provide jobs. We're gonna provide a few scholarships. We're gonna do a little bit here and a little bit there, but in terms of the problem that's created by these policies that do things like close power plants and mines relative to what comes in on the back end is it's just such a small amount of assistance if it even actually helps because a lot of these things unfortunately end up being very politicized and a lot of times get put into things that sometimes not only don't help but actually hurt the process. And it just calls to mind just the sad history of the greater Detroit, Michigan area as the auto industry left. They flailed for years and did a lot of things that in to try to make things better that actually made them worse. And I'm not saying I'm not quite there yet. On this one position can have that much impact, but that is a distinct possibility that New Mexico faces.
Well, the policies have that result, and I found an article from Source New Mexico. States to decide before 2024 where to send $6 million for Northwest New Mexico economic development. Now, I know they were very much hoping for the hydrogen hub and a billion plus in federal subsidies to come in to the Four Corners and other areas of other states where they were going to do that. But here are a few items that they cite: setting up solar, making housing more accessible, boosting local food production, starting up hydrogen energy production, expanding educational opportunities at local colleges. Those are all fine and dandy, but and some of them may even help a few people. Although expanding educational opportunities at local colleges strikes me as that's going to help a lot of educrats, not do a lot for the people who lost their jobs. And there's really, it's an unjust transition because it is an unjust transition in the sense that government killed off this particular group of jobs and economic opportunities, and they're coming in with some money that is just not going to make the same impact in the local community. The whole article goes into all the political disagreements that people have about how the money is supposed to be used or should be used, and it really it's one of the many many reasons that we at the Rio Grande Foundation support free market economic policies, because once you get that money in the hands of the government, it inevitably becomes a honeypot for political interests, whoever they may be, and the guy who may not have a high school diploma or may have a high school diploma working in the coal mine, uh, and it lost that job is probably not the most politically well connected person in the state. So you get all the special interests and all those groups that engage in trying to get the cash.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, just looking, example, what is $6 million? It's not an inconsequential amount of money.
I'd take it.
Yeah, you can do some good with it. But, when you're talking about something like, 500, 600 jobs and the follow on jobs that might be lost from closing the power plant and the coal mine and everything that goes with it, $6 million would only pay for 120, $50,000 a year jobs. Oh yeah, for 1 year. I mean, so it's one of those that was the point about putting things in perspective. Is yeah, it's not an amount to sneeze at, but it's certainly what are the odds that that's going to do anything ever to equalize that issue with regard to those jobs that are lost.
Yeah. All right. Well, in a little more optimistic news, Senate Finance Committee Chair George Munoz is doing some good work to try to highlight or understand and make sure the public understands the real impact of the film subsidy program in New Mexico. And I talked to Robert Knott over at the Santa Fe New Mexican and posted the story at errorsofenchantment.com. Uh, the LFC report that came out, whether that was truly something that Munoz was the driving force behind, or whether there was just an impetus at the LFC to finally dig into the film subsidy program. Munoz himself has expressed some more nuanced opinions in terms of that program than a lot of other policymakers around New Mexico. And that was the thrust of the Santa Fe New Mexican piece. A number of folks who are critics, like we at the Rio Grande Foundation, were given a chance to weigh in. Supporters certainly got their chance to as well. But I thought it was a balanced and fair piece. And again, you can find it at the Errors of Enchantment. Appeared over the weekend at the Santa Fe New Mexican. Uh, it's good that Munoz is working through this and trying to hold the program accountable. Uh, Mo Maestas, Senator Democrat, his assertion was that it will be difficult to rein in the program at a time of flush revenues is certainly, I think, something that we agree with. It's kind of interesting that this is happening now, given the flood of revenues that we have in the state. But it's yet another way that New Mexico is just frittering that money away. Maestas asserts that the program has proven itself, which it has proven itself to be a waste of money. But that's you know, wasting money is kind of what they do in Santa Fe. That's the MO. That is the raison d'etre in the legislature.
Well, and it's proven itself in that if you give Hollywood enough money, they will make movies and streaming television shows in your community. No question about it. That isn't the point. And as we've, lots of people have said lots of times, if we had a program that would pay 25, 30% of the salaries of any job, any industry, do you think you might be able to attract a few more of those to New Mexico? And the answer is of course you would. It's whether those jobs are sustaining, permanent, and the amount that the state gets back. There's a return on that investment as opposed to just spending it. And again, the spending part, they got that down. That works. So I will give them that. Is there a return? And does it really make economic sense to do that? A lot of states have had higher film subsidies in the past and looked at this very issue and then decided that it wasn't quite worth it. And maybe New Mexico's on that path as well. It's about time they take a bit harder look at that. That's for sure.
Interestingly enough, I was looking at the link on the post, and something happened because the Santa Fe New Mexican must have moved the link or whatever, because it was not active as I just went there to check it out. So there is, as usual, a way to find it from a cross post. So Yahoo News actually did a relink or repost of the article, which is what I am just linking to. So, folks, go there, and if you're inclined, I put a link in there for Senator Munoz. He, of course, is a Democrat. If I didn't mention that, but kind of just assume that if we're talking about legislature in New Mexico, that they are Democrats because of the sheer numbers. But he is the Senate Finance Committee chair in a Democrat-dominated legislature. Ergo, Munoz is a Democrat, but he is, I think it's safe to say, a relatively moderate Democrat, as was John Arthur Smith. So, you get to be Senate Finance Committee chair. It means you have at least a grasp of basic math, which I think is safe to say much of the rest of the legislature does not have. So, he's certainly better than the average. And feel free to drop him a line and say, hey, appreciate what you're doing on this issue. I don't see the film subsidy program suddenly being pared back. Maybe we can stop the growth of the generosity of these subsidies. I don't know. Even last year, the governor didn't exactly highlight or tout that as an agenda item as we moved into the session, but it wound up happening, and that was one of the few programs or few policies that not vetoed in the final tax package. Albuquerque was ranked number 8 on a list of retail theft hotspots by the National Retail Federation. So that is certainly not good. It's also not surprising given what we see happening around our city. I will go through this list and highlight a few additional cases, but numero uno, Los Angeles, number 1, worst shoplifting hotspot. San Francisco, number 2. No surprise, the top 2 are in California. I think it's a little surprising that Houston is number 3, New York, number 4, Seattle, number 5, Atlanta, 6, Chicago, 7. We are tied with Miami and Denver for 8. And, Sacramento's 7. So I apologize. They're tied with Chicago. So that's 11 total cities, and not a list you want to be on. Cities that typically have some high crime that you might expect to be in this kind of list. Portland's not on there. Las Vegas is not on there.
Seattle.
No, Seattle's 5th.
Oh, Seattle. Okay, missed that. Sorry.
It's okay. Phoenix isn't on there. There's no St. Louis, no Detroit, no Cleveland, no Cincinnati, no Pittsburgh, no Philly, no New Orleans. So, it's definitely a bad list to be so high on, and we are the only city. We're only bigger than Sacramento. Sacramento is the only town that's smaller than Albuquerque, at least the city population, that is on the list. So most of these are obviously among the biggest cities in America. Most of them are obviously blue Democrat governed, both state and local, although Houston and Miami are Republican led states, and Miami is apparently even a Republican mayor. But this is obviously not broadly the case. Most of these cities have followed a very progressive path. Everyone from Seattle, San Francisco, LA, Denver, all of them have followed a very left-wing trajectory. And, just another indicator that Mayor Keller and the state, Governor Lujan Grisham, need to get serious about this issue. They need to be held accountable by the voters. So does City Council. So by all means, please go vote in your local election here, whether it's in Albuquerque or somewhere else. We've seen the shuttering of a Walmart, CVS, and an Allsups now in the so-called International District, which I have no doubt that all of those, plus numerous other shutterings of stores and restaurants and other places, have been due to crime issues. You can follow our friend Doug Peterson, who is a landlord and owner of properties around the city and around the region. His Twitter handle, Mr. Doug Peterson, he regularly reports on issues they have to deal with, whether it's theft or some other kind of vandalism, and everything increases the price that you and I pay and reduces the job opportunities and generally makes our city and these other cities less livable.
Yeah, there's no question about that. A couple quick points, Paul. One, because the bus system in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, is such a huge part of our retail theft problem. I think we might have the most environmentally friendly
Oh,
shoplifting
oh,
issue across the country. And then the other one was, as I looked at these cities, and I have no knowledge one way or the other, but I do know that. You when you're reporting crime statistics, the key is how is the data gathered? And in some communities, and as you listed a couple like St. Louis and other places that I thought might be on there, it might get to the point where in some communities people just get tired of reporting the crime. It's just such a big part of life that they're not even trying anymore. The numbers don't get taken into account, which is another issue. But yeah, some interesting food for thought in that article for sure. And there, without a doubt, having rampant shoplifting, having that criminal kind of overtone in your community is certainly not in any way, shape, or form conducive to good quality of life.
yeah. Finally, Governor Lujan Grisham was over in Australia. She, of course, uh, rode her bike to Los Angeles and then took a sailboat all the way from LA, along with her compatriots and the meeting there. But no, she took a jumbo jet with a lot of CO2 emissions over to Australia on a trade mission, and supposedly he's bringing us a hydrogen company from Australia. It's not nearly the size of the Maxion deal, kind of relatively paltry. We still haven't got a understanding of how many subsidies will be involved in this whole project, but uh, the governor was in Australia, the land down under, and they could keep her as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah, Paul, and I was looking at that company in the media reports. What does it really do is it has it looks like they have a technology to utilize hydrogen without combusting it, without burning it, basically using a chemical reaction to create heat that could be used. The key is that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that endeavor, the utilization of hydrogen, but make no mistake that there's a lot of problems right now with regard to how do you get the hydrogen to put into these processes, whether it be transportation, energy generation, or the like. So, yeah, this is an interesting one. We'll see. New Mexico doesn't have a great track record of picking the right companies to back with regard to this, but we're making a lot of bets in this round, and we just have to keep track of them.
yeah, and of course, as soon as we know exactly what subsidies are being brought to bear for this company, we will let you know. So I hope to hear that. It seems kind of strange, quite frankly, that they are coming here without actually having that in stone or in ink. It strikes me that they know that the governor's sitting on a pile of cash and they can pretty much take what you want from her. So thanks for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointsnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show at Apple, Stitcher, or tell Google Home to play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.